There's a name whispered in the shadows of Hollywood, spoken with awe, curiosity, and just a hint of mystery. Ana de Armas. To the public eye, she's the glamorous star who captivates audiences on the red carpet and on screen. But behind the flashing cameras and the designer gowns is a story few dare to imagine, one carved not in luxury, but in sheer grit and quiet rebellion. Long before she stole the spotlight in Los Angeles, Ana was just a wide-eyed girl in Cuba, watching worn-out DVDs on a flickering screen. Her world was modest. No toys, no glittering future laid out for her. Sometimes she wore her brother's old pants, snipping them short to pretend they were hers. But her mind was elsewhere, soaring. With the characters in the telenovelas she'd secretly fallen in love with, something stirred inside her, a fire that wouldn't go out. At 14, she stepped into the National Theater School of Havana, not knowing that her entire life was about to change. Every line she rehearsed, every scene she played, was a step away from the island and towards something far greater. But Cuba was only the beginning. A secret weapon lay buried in her family tree. Spanish blood. With it, Ana held a passport to freedom, and one day, with nothing but determination in her bag, she vanished from Cuba and reappeared in Spain, chasing a dream that most thought impossible. No one could have guessed what happened next. Just 2 weeks after arriving in Madrid, the unexpected happened. But what role did fate play in this sudden twist? And how did a stranger in a foreign land become the face of an entire generation? The story only gets stranger from here. For a moment, it seemed like Ana de Armas had finally found her calm after the storm. In Spain, her name was on every television screen, her presence familiar and comforting to fans. Off-screen, she had even found love with actor Marc Clotet. Their romance bloomed quietly, away from the relentless eye of the media, and in 2011, beneath the warm sun on a tranquil beach, they whispered their vows and began a new chapter. But still, something inside Ana wouldn't rest. By 2013, the marriage had dissolved, not with chaos or scandal, but with a quiet, mutual understanding. It wasn't heartbreak that pushed Ana to leave, it was ambition, a hunger that wouldn't let her settle. Spain had given her fame, love, and stability, but her dream, it was still calling her from across the ocean. Ana packed up her life once again and landed in Los Angeles, a stranger in a city that doesn't slow down for anyone. Her face might have belonged in front of a camera, but her tongue did not belong in the room. Not yet. She didn't speak English, not a word. Auditions were terrifying. She would nod through conversations with agents, pretending to understand. Sometimes the words felt like knives, especially during one audition that cut deep. A casting director glanced at her resume, shook their head, and said, "Come back in a few years when you can speak English." Ana didn't flinch. Her answer was calm but thunderous. "No, I'll come back in 2 months." They laughed. She didn't. Exactly 2 months later, Ana de Armas walked back into another audition room, and this time, everything was different. But what did she face behind the golden doors of Hollywood? And how did this outsider earn her place among giants? The path she took was anything but ordinary. Ana de Armas never saw herself as a tourist in Hollywood. She wasn't there to simply try her luck. She was there to conquer. And for her, it wasn't just about memorizing lines or booking roles. It was about being in the room with visionaries, directors, who shaped worlds. All she wanted was to talk to them, understand them, connect. But how do you hold a dream in your hands when you can't even hold a conversation? That barrier, the language, wasn't just frustrating, it was humiliating. On one film set, when a director casually suggested tweaking a line she was supposed to say, the simple change spiraled into chaos. Ana couldn't explain why it didn't work. The meaning twisted in translation, and the moment became a disaster. The only solution? Go back to the original line. For Ana, that moment was a wake-up call. It wasn't enough to feel the character. She needed to own the voice, so she disappeared for a while. Not from the industry, but from everything else. She locked herself into full-day English classes for 4 straight months. No distractions, no shortcuts. She immersed herself in grammar, accent, rhythm, until the words stopped feeling foreign and started feeling like home. And when she returned with a vow. No more typecasting. She told her team she didn't want to be boxed in by ethnicity. She wouldn't play the stereotypical roles just because of her accent. She was more than someone's background character. She was ready to lead, but Hollywood, it didn't change overnight. When the script for Knives Out first landed on her desk, Ana almost said no. It described her as a pretty Latina caretaker, exactly the kind of role she wanted to avoid. But then, she asked for the full script, and what she found inside wasn't a side character, it was the heart of the film. She stepped into the role of Marta, not just as an actress, but as a storm. And when the film hit the screens, audiences and critics alike couldn't look away. A Golden Globe nomination followed. Ana de Armas had arrived, not just in Hollywood, but inside its core stories. From there, doors began to swing open. Bigger stories. Bigger names. The girl who once couldn't string a sentence together was now speaking fluently in the world of James Bond. But fame, as always, has its shadows. And as Ana's star rose, so did the attention, the rumors, and the heartbreak. What came next would test her spirit in ways no script ever could. There are roles that change an actor's career, and then there are roles that change the actor. When Ana de Armas was offered the chance to play Marilyn Monroe, she didn't just see a script. She saw a mirror, not of her life, but of everything. She was afraid of vulnerability, fame, identity, and the haunting cost of being seen by the world but not understood. To become Marilyn wasn't just about makeup or costume, it meant becoming a ghost. Ana dove headfirst into the role, knowing the world would judge her for daring to play the most iconic woman in Hollywood history. For 9 long months, she surrendered herself to transformation, working 3 hours a day with a vocal coach while shooting other films, relentlessly chasing that delicate blend of softness and sorrow that defined Marilyn. Each word had to land just right. Each breath needed to echo the past. Why did she push herself this hard? Because Ana knew what was at stake. Marilyn wasn't just a symbol, she was a tragedy in motion. A woman adored by millions, and yet abandoned by everyone. Ana wanted the world to feel her pain, not just admire her beauty. And in the end, her gamble paid off. Blonde became a haunting experience not only for those who watched it, but for Ana herself. Her performance didn't just earn applause, it earned prestige. Nominations poured in, a BAFTA, an Academy Award nod, international acclaim. But the one thing Ana remembered most was that little Cuban girl who once watched DVDs on repeat because she had no toys, no luxury, no idea that one day she'd wear Marilyn's pain like a second skin. And yet Ana remained humble. In interviews, she confessed she never believed she'd become a Bond girl, and certainly not Marilyn Monroe. But she did both. She defied every label, every doubt. Still, with every dream realized came a price. Hollywood's spotlight is blinding, and when it turned toward Ana, it didn't just illuminate her career. It exposed her heart. Fame had brought her power, but it had also begun to devour her personal life. It was during the filming of Deep Water that the public's attention shifted again, not to her talent, but to her love life. She met Ben Affleck, and what followed was not just a romance. It was a media storm. But was this love story real, or just another illusion crafted by the cameras? The truth, as always, was far more complicated and far more human. For a moment, it seemed like life had finally slowed down for Ana de Armas. In the silence of a pandemic-stricken world, while film sets were shuttered and cities stood still, Ana found something she hadn't expected: peace, a growing affection. For the man she had once only known as a co-star, Ben Affleck. Their chemistry on set had been undeniable, but when the cameras stopped rolling and the world retreated indoors, something real began to take shape. Early 2020 became a time of discovery, of shared solitude. The two actors isolated together, their bond strengthening away from the spotlight. Or so they hoped, but Hollywood doesn't sleep. The media's lens followed them everywhere, across oceans and continents. Whether they were walking dogs or grocery shopping, headlines exploded with their every move. When the couple vacationed in Costa Rica, and later Cuba, Ana's cherished homeland, whispers began. Was this the real thing? Would it last? In Cuba, it's said that families can read hearts like open books. Ben met hers. He met her loved ones. He saw where she came from. And for a time, it looked like their lives might actually fit. Ben spoke of Ana with reverence, calling her talent infinite. She met his children, his mother. It wasn't just romance, it was roots, being planted in two lives that had once run parallel. But under the surface, something fragile stirred. While Ana craved authenticity and emotional connection, she also longed for privacy. And that was slipping away. Every coffee run, every shared glance, every casual stroll became a headline. The constant presence of paparazzi felt suffocating, a cage wrapped in camera flashes. Behind the smiles and red carpets, tension grew. They resumed filming Deep Water, trying to recapture the magic that had once been just between them. But the very project that had brought them together couldn't save them now. By January 2021, the fairy tale quietly faded. The world didn't hear a scream, just a whisper. They were no longer together. The question lingered in the silence. Was it love lost, or something never meant to last? But Ana wasn't done with Hollywood, and Hollywood wasn't done with her. What came next would redefine not just her career, but her very identity in the industry. Love doesn't always end with a bang. Sometimes it dissolves quietly, like mist in the morning air, leaving behind only questions and echoes of what could have been. Ana and Ben didn't part with animosity. In fact, their goodbye was calm, gentle, but it was laced with the ache of two souls standing at different crossroads. One source would later reveal that Ben was heartbroken. He had believed, perhaps hoped, that they could find a way through. the chaos together. But Ana saw something else. She was still young, with years of discovery ahead, and deep inside, a voice whispered that it was time to choose herself. The woman who had crossed oceans, defied odds, and learned a new language. For her dream now felt another pull: peace. And she couldn't find that in the constant surveillance of Los Angeles. She packed her things, left behind the hills and the flashing bulbs, and began again. This time, something unexpected happened, somewhere between quiet dinners and chance. Introductions. She met Paul Bukadakis, an executive from the world of modern dating, a vice president at Tinder. Irony, it seemed, had a playful sense of humor. But this wasn't a headline-grabbing Hollywood romance. This was something different. They met through a mutual friend. No flashing cameras, no studio set, just two people quietly drawn to one another. From the beginning, Ana and Paul made a vow. No more public scrutiny, no more constant exposure. Just a life lived, not performed. Together, they carved out a quiet existence in New York City. A city where anonymity could still exist, where love could grow behind closed doors, far from paparazzi lenses. They shared holidays, laughter, and gentle moments that needed no validation from the world outside. She would sometimes share a glimpse, a cozy Christmas in Vermont with Paul's siblings, a blurred photo, a warm smile, but only when she chose to. Ana had found something she never had in all her years of chasing fame: a stillness. A man who saw her not as a star, but as a woman. Real, grounded, healing. But Anna's story doesn't stop in the arms of love. Her next move would shock critics, challenge Hollywood's expectations, and place her in the role of a lifetime, one she was never supposed to play. In the quiet of New York's winter, Ana's life seemed to have settled into something almost serene. The bustling streets outside her apartment were far removed from the frenzied glare of Hollywood. Her Instagram occasionally flickered with glimpses of happiness, snapshots from a Christmas retreat in Vermont, yet the man she'd found herself falling for remained elusive from the lens. The images told a story, but it was one that Ana herself was careful to narrate, and no one else. But in the stillness of these moments, there was an undeniable glow about her. Something had shifted. Ana had journeyed through years of struggles, overcome challenges that many would have crumbled under. From the unsure young girl in Cuba to the woman in Hollywood fighting against language barriers and cultural expectations, she had conquered obstacles that could have broken anyone else. But not her. Ana's resilience was now as much a part of her as the role she played on screen. Her success? It was no longer just about the accolades or the awards, though they came in droves. It was about peace, a peace that only came after years of battling for her space in an industry that thrives on chaos. The actress, once unsure of her place, had finally found a balance between who she was in front of the cameras and who she was away from them. As for her future, it seemed as though anything was possible. The world could look at Ana and see a star, but what they couldn't see was the woman who had stopped chasing after the approval of others, one who had quietly built a life on her own terms. And while we can't predict where the winds of fate will take her next, one thing is for sure: Ana de Armas is more than just a name on a movie poster. She is a force of nature, a woman who carved her own path. She deserves this peace. She deserves this happiness. At Hollywood Hot Topics, we'll be watching closely as Ana's next chapter unfolds. Whether it's more roles, new love, or her next big adventure, we'll be here. Because if there's one thing we've learned from Ana's journey, it's that the story isn't over. It's only just beginning.